Bobby Fischer is at his best in this game against international master Jacek Bednarski from Poland. This was played in the Havana, Cuba Olympiad in 1966. And watch, very interesting, in this game, it may look like Bobby Fischer is in really big trouble. But it is interesting how he's already worked out the complications before they begin. Other players might have been terrified of Black's attack, but Fischer, very calm, handles it smoothly and effectively. Uh, Fischer has white, Bednarski has black. Let us jump right in. Fischer begins with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, and d4. We have an open Sicilian on the board. Knight f6, knight c3, and Bednarski plays a6, the Najdorf Sicilian. This is Fischer's favorite defense to e4. And the idea is to keep a piece out of b5 and maybe expand himself with b5. And the main theme is usually Black wants to play e5, and he doesn't want that knight to have access to the b5 square. But it's a pawn move and not a piece move, and that allows Fischer to play his favorite line against the Najdorf, bishop to c4, the Sozin variation. Very aggressive, aiming directly at the weak f7 pawn in Black's position, as direct and as an attacking formation as you can get against the Najdorf. Black's next move is seen pretty much a necessity. e6, trying to blunt the attacking potential of the bishop. The one thing Black does have to look out for, though, are potential sacrifices on e6. With this bishop and knight, can cause a lot of trouble. First, Fischer just plays the bishop back to b3. Then knight b to d7. Black has the idea of playing knight to c5 and taking that dangerous bishop off of the board as quickly as possible. Now, in this position, the move bishop takes e6 looks tempting, but after pawn takes, knight takes, queen to b6, Black is doing okay here. Black is probably a little bit better. The complications of a position like this would have already been worked out by both players before they even sat down at the board. Fischer plays f4. The thematic idea, the idea is to play f5 and soften this diagonal leading to the f7 square. By playing f5 and putting pressure on e6, it makes this structure more vulnerable. Knight to c5, aiming at the bishop, and also now the e6 pawn is well defended. Fischer continues with his plan of f5. Again, putting pressure on e6, softening up the diagonal, and white usually does not mind if Black plays e5 here, because then it creates a permanent weakness on the d5 square that white can exploit. But Black in this position notices that Fischer's e-pawn is only defended once and attacked twice. So he goes for it. I imagine if you're playing Fischer, you might as well play as sharply as possible. And he does. Knight f to e4. Black's best here, probably just the safer bishop to e7 and going ahead and castling. But he goes after it, grabs that e-pawn. Now, if this works, it would basically mean the entire Sozin was a bogus opening, to be perfectly honest with you. My bet is Fischer had already worked this out in his home preparation before this game even was played. He goes ahead and takes on e6, and Black again should probably play bishop takes e6 to limit the damage, but Black goes for it. Queen to h4 check. Now, I know a lot of players with the white pieces would be terrified of this position. There's only one move to not lose the game for white. If he plays king to e2, moving out of the way, queen to f2 is mate. The knight at c5 covers the d3 flight square. So the only move that Fischer can play here is g3, blocking the check that way. But now Black plays knight takes g3, a very dangerous position. The knight attacks the rook, the pawn is pinned. The queen would take rook if the pawn takes knight. And Black has potential discovered checks along the diagonal. This looks very dangerous for white. What is Fischer's idea? Well, he calmly plays the move knight to f3, attacking the queen. So if the knight moves, creating a discovery, he would just take the checking piece, just knight takes queen. So Black has to move the queen. And he plays queen to h5. He needs to keep a pin on this file so that if pawn takes knight, queen would be able to take the rook. So pawn takes f7 check. Now, Fischer's king is open, but so is black's. And things are looking pretty dangerous for black. He plays king to d8. Now rook to g1. There's no more pin on the h-file, and he's threatening to capture the knight at g3. And the knight comes back to f5. The knight is centralized, and it helps to defend d6, but it's pretty vulnerable on this f5 square. So Fischer plays knight to d5, taking advantage of this nice weak d5 square, putting the knight right in the center of the board. Here, best maybe bishop to e7, but white would just take. And if the knight takes, then queen takes pawn check, and white's doing very well. And if the king takes, the king's in the middle of the board, and you can end up in trouble very quickly. So because of that, black plays queen takes f7. Bishop to g5 check. King to e8. If bishop takes, then just knight takes would win on the spot because it reveals an attack on the queen as well as just capturing the piece with the threats of discovered check. So he pretty much has to play the move he plays. King to e8. Now queen to e2 check. All that pressure black had has been reversed. It's now going back on him, and he's under serious pressure. The queen check has to be dealt with. If the king moves to a square like d7, then knight to b6 would fork the king and the rook. So he has to play a move like bishop to e6. He blocks the check down the e-file, but the pressure is still building on black's position. And now knight to f4. Taking advantage of this pin, there are 3 pieces attacking the bishop at e6, but only 2 defending. And in order to add that third defender, black has to defend e6 with his king. Not something you want to do. So you can feel the pressure building, and a tactical shot that would win the game seems to be in the offing. Fischer could take on e6, and in this position, white is much better. It has a winning position. But the move Fischer plays is even better than that. He castles long, just adding another piece, the rook, placing it opposite the king. Black is in huge trouble here. Queen to e8. But now bishop takes e6 check. Knight takes e6. And Fischer has set up this position and has a very powerful double attack in this position. Can you see the tactical move Fischer played here? That's right. The double attacking move is this. Queen to e4. Hitting the knight at f5 and attacking the pawn at b7, which he would take with check. Bednarski plays b6 or g6, excuse me, to defend the knight at f5, and Fischer could go ahead and take on b7, and he is winning after that. But again, he plays the most precise move. Knight takes e6, and in this position, black resigned. In order to regain his piece, he would have to retake with the queen, but then queen takes b7 check, and now the rook at a8 is undefended, and when the king moves, white can take the rook. The rook at g1 is coming to e1, and black's position completely collapses. Interesting reversal of fortune there. He really wasn't a reversal of fortune because Fischer knew he would be okay all along. But it looked like he was in trouble there, but very soon it was black who was in trouble. Hope you've enjoyed this game from Fischer. See you again soon at Chess Dog. Goodbye.